Oh, spit this thing out.
That was like a oh hello
What
moment.
were you expecting me in underwear?
How you living?
Enclosed?
Aren't we all, man? These have been good, man. I mean, it's. I'm trying to think like what can we do during this time, right? And I'm thinking, okay,
Right.
we need content. People are at home, like on their phones, on their computers, and everyone's available too, right?
Yeah.
It's like I've never been. It's never been easier to schedule a guy like you for something like this, you know?
Everyone's home and uh, so long days, dude.
Well, I mean,
Very long days.
just so uncertain. So what I want, I mean, I don't want to talk about coronavirus and the scare.
Sure. Me, neither do I.
We hear
I
about
don't
the
want this, and I've told you this on the phone. I don't want this to be like kind of gloom and doom.
right, right. I mean, that's all we hear about in the news. So I want to share stories that I wouldn't normally be able to get, like I've been talking to entrepreneurs, menswear guys. So I want to hear the Angel story.
Okay.
I will say that I think you're probably the best guy in the business at branding because everyone I speak to always uses you as an example.
Really?
Yeah, you're always like, and then Angel does this, and your name always comes up. So,
I'm flattered.
um, so how did you get started, man? Tell me. I want to spend a little bit of time on that. Then I want to talk more like branding and what's going on with
Yeah.
you now.
So from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I've always say this because a lot of people don't know this, but technically I kind of grew up in the industry because my mother is a seamstress and a dressmaker, and so I would say between the ages of like 8 and like 12 years old, I've spent a lot of time with her sourcing fabrics in like Brooklyn and in the garment district. And I knew how to sew when I was young. I don't really know how to sew much now. I can stitch, but I knew how to do a lot of kind of like the apprentice work for her when I was younger, because obviously we grew up low income. So while my dad was working, we were always at home with my mom. Um,
Where was that again?
so
Sorry.
excuse me.
Where were you living then?
I was born and raised in Williamsburg.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. So
But before it was cool.
when it was cool.
Ah, yes.
Yes. Look, obviously, it's incredible now. I'm a huge component and a champion. I always champion growth and everything moving further, and so whether it healthy gentrification is always good. So I think Williamsburg now is great. The economics of it are incredible now, obviously, as opposed to when I grew up. It was, I mean, we could know every person from Williamsburg or any part of New York City that was pre gentrification could say this is the real Harlem or this or that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was great then. It's great now.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so I grew up in the industry with my mom. Um, I actually hated this anything that had to do with like having clothes made for you, because I always associated it with poverty. And so growing up, my mom would make us all our clothes,
Huh.
and she made us our book bags and all that stuff. I always say that, and it was tough because in a city like New York that's very very label and fashion driven, even from a young age, to have to go to school when everyone's wearing a specific brand. And rather than you wearing that brand, you have a mom who's a creative now in hindsight, me knowing that. A mom who's a creative saying, I can just make you that. Although, yes, there was a part of that was financially speaking, it was, beneficial for her to make me something as opposed to buying it. But creatively, she was, at the same time, she was kind of like, I can make that same thing.
Huh.
It just doesn't have this label.
Right.
And um, so yeah, I kind of grew up with that, and I actually, as I grew up in like high school and even in college, I actually hated anything that had to do with like sartorial, like dress, because again,
Really.
mentally speaking, I always associated it with like my childhood and it kind of growing up and not being able to get specific things because, because we were poor. And then when I got to high school, I went to a pretty well-known art high school here. That what was glorified is whenever you want something, it was to rack. So coming from a graffiti background, graffiti writers you don't buy paint, you rack it. And so even this whole lowhead community that I grew up in high school, and all my friends were all lowheads. Oh, that's terrible. Give me.
That's all right.
Can I turn that off, or is this gonna mess with the video?
No, you're still good. You're still good.
Yeah. Okay, so I with that lowhead community, everyone they even rack, and obviously that was all stolen as well, which was kind of odd when I saw the documentary Very Ralph. And they had the gentleman, the guy who was kind of a lowhead, come on and said, "Yeah, we used to steal all this stuff." I was like, "Huh? You hear that?"
But you knew that.
No, yeah. If you're from New York and you truly don't understand like the whole low life thing, yeah, of course you knew that.
I mean, where were they stealing this shit from?
From Polo Toe.
From what?
From Ralph Lauren.
From the store?
I'm sure.
Huh.
I mean, you got to think about it. In the 90s, aside from the mansion, and I don't even know what year the mansion. What was the year the mansion was created? Probably early in the 80s or something.
I think
right?
it's 80, 86, something like that. Like,
I mean, the only place to buy Ralph Lauren was there. I mean, I can't remember vividly if. I take it back. A lot of people used to. There was Century 21 that was giant in those days. And then I don't even know if this exists anymore, but Sims.
Yeah.
That was also in that area down like Wall Street.
Yeah.
But those were the main two things, like Century 21, Sims, and then you had the Ralph Lauren store. Which at that point was called Polo.
So these guys, I didn't realize that there was that much stealing going on, where that's how it's kind of spread. I mean, it's crazy to get your stuff stolen, and then there's a movement that starts because all these guys are rocking it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you think about all these kind of like the sneakerhead movement and all that stuff, essentially speaking, like all that stuff was like someone bought it at one point, and then it was just kind of like little by little kind of like taken from you.
How much of that stuff is bootleg? I remember when I first got to New York, I was like collecting I was so into sneakers, Jordans, whatever. And I got into like the 28th and Broadway scene, like the wholesale district, going up in those warehouses and buying like straight, what I didn't realize at the time was straight bootlegs, right? I thought it was stolen. And it's all like, man, this colorway of Jordan never came out. What's up with these? And it turns out they're all just fakes,
Yeah, so I know that the polos were bootlegged easily.
I mean, they had them up there. You go into, it was a wild scene. You go up this rickety elevator. The guy's looking at me like, "Who the hell are you?" He's wearing him a cop, opens the door, and you got like, it's straight out of like a Biggie song, like sewing tigers on my shirt and alligators, It's like they had the polos up there. I thought it was like, oh, these guys are all stealing this stuff. Like that's why it's so hush hush. Like I'm gonna fucking grab it all,
Right.
And that I didn't even clue into that it's all just fake until I was like, you wash the polo shirt and it shrinks 3 sizes, and you're like, wait, this doesn't seem.
And then the polo thing comes off.
Right.
The horse, and you're like, wait a minute.
And then you'd see other ones that had like the polo was backwards, or like the logo wasn't right. Anyway.
Actually, you think about that in terms of, I mean, it all makes sense in terms of copyright infringement.
Right.
Because as long as you do something else, but
a little different.
But yeah, I mean, so I wasn't really into the sneaker scene when I was younger. So I can't speak to the sneakerhead kind of community, but we wore a lot of low and all that stuff. So
early low head growing up.
Yeah, early low head growing up, athlete as well as you're a basketball player. I was a baseball player, so went to school to play Division I baseball.
You were a beast. I remember I first met you. You were yoked up, big guy.
No, actually, when you first met me, I was actually very thin because I had just converted to veganism.
Oh, that's because you got bigger after that.
Yeah, so I was when I was in college, I was like 245.
That's right.
And like an animal. And then
you went plant-based.
When I converted to a plant-based diet, like when I met you, I dropped down to about like 190, 185, and then I lived in Miami at the time, and so I was plant-based for like 4 or 5 years. Came back to New York. I was off the plant-based scene. gain the weight back.
I was off the plant-based scene.
Yeah, I came back and I wanted to kind of try some, tried eating non-plant-based for a little while, and when I came back to New York, I started eating steak again, all that stuff, and gained a significant amount of weight back. But I also realized that like my body just doesn't do well with eating meat and dairy and all that stuff. I'm highly lactose intolerant, so I've obviously developed back into the plant-based scene about a year and a half ago, and it is. I don't do it because of the radical lifestyle, but in terms of like the gut health and the health in general, it's helped me tremendously. And this time around, I can't ever see myself going back.
You're not leaving the scene.
No.
All right, so you're a college baseball player, doing your damn thing.
Yeah, and then so went to college, played baseball, came out, played like a very, very sliver stint at like minor league baseball, and
put that on the resume.
Excuse me.
Put it on the resume.
Yeah, and then immediately after that, came right back to New York, and I came back to New York in late 2003. So came back to New York, started working real estate, and being back in New York is essentially what kind of sparked this whole this interest in clothing. And I always say that I attribute I attribute the start of this kind of like love and this kind of passion all the way back to like when Scott Schumann started his blog, because it was in '03. His blog was kind of just, I don't know when he started it, but it was just kind of like off the ground, and it was what essentially helped me understand this type of lifestyle. And I always say, man, I mean, before I even got into the industry, I never really traveled. I mean, I went back and forth to Puerto Rico because that's where I grew up. And so Scott Schumann essentially like opened my eyes up to the world.
Wow.
With as much as he was traveling. And so I technically only met him once, and I've never told him this, but I mean, he was a huge component of me. I mean, he was a major component of me, one, getting into the industry, but not only that, but understanding the world beyond New York.
Right. But you said you didn't even like sartorial clothes before that. So how did how did that like switch flip?
Well, so when I came back to New York, when I was in college, I was like, again, visually and I guess aesthetically a thug. Not
like what were you wearing? What were you wearing? I'll go toe to toe with you on this one. What were you wearing?
So like, so here's a funny story. I went into my first interview with a real estate company here in full on like Iverson cornrows.
To a job interview?
For a job interview, I had on like a shirt, like a dress shirt with like not the cool way like that you do it now, or like I like kind of the way you see like Wade Code doing it with the cool like polo with the collar out and it's summertime. I literally had like this stiff like Van Houston like collar, and it was like out of like the outside, like out on the outside of the jacket. I wore a size 48 regular US, and it was slightly tight.
Really?
Yeah, I was a big guy, man, and so yeah, and I wore these like square toe. I don't know. I think they were so cognac, they were almost like orange. And I want to say, I think the suit color was like olive. And here's the thing is, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think I was crushing it.
Right, you're just like, I found this is the only clothes I got for this.
No, it's what I graduated in.
Right.
It's like that was a suit that I had when I graduated. So,
You got pictures of all this?
I do have the graduation suit.
All right,
picture.
You gotta send me that. I'll use that as the lead for this interview.
It is literally exactly how I walked into this interview. I'll have to send you that because and it's gonna suck. I don't even think any of this stuff is out there.
Oh, that's funny.
And so I walked into the interview.
This is pre-Instagram.
This is pre-everything. It's like seriously pre-everything. I even think this is certainly pre-Facebook.
Right.
And
pre-digital camera.
What's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no. So I walked in the office, as you can imagine, it was like a loft office that the elevator opened up and everything kind of was like exposed. And as soon as I walked up, I walk out of the elevator. Everyone was like, "What the heck? Who is this kid?" And I'm walking towards the guy who hired me.
Wait, he hired you after all that?
Well, here's the funny thing is, and this is why I give the guy credit. He kind of saw beyond judging me with that, and I sat down, and he was kind of like, he's like, "Dude, what are you wearing?" And I was like, "I don't know, a suit. Isn't that what you wear to an interview?" And he was kind of like, just flabbergasted. He was like, "What the heck?" And so we had this conversation, and essentially at the end of the conversation, he's like, "Look, dude, I'm intrigued by your motivation, the fact that you're an athlete, because he was an Israeli basketball player,
Whoa,
and served in the Israeli army, and he's like, I think you have a lot of drive." He goes, "You just can't come back looking like that." And I was kind of like, "I don't get it. Why?" He's like, "I mean, I want to hire you, but you need a total makeover because you can't work here like that." And I mean, in theory, like when you think about it, it's like, man, this is like insane. I don't even think you could say that nowadays. Or you might have been able to say it then either. But again, as an athlete, as opposed to like being like, insulted and like, "Oh man, I'm like, super like depressed now." Not that I went back and it was like a challenge for me.
I gotta work on my game now.
Yeah, like everyone in the office was like making fun of me. Like they were like laughing out loud. Like they were like, "Yo, who is this clown?" And so, and then one of the guys, who's actually a good friend of mine now, one of the guys was like, they're like, "Yo, who let this thug in?" or something like that. And so I went back, and I remember my sister, my sister's a global director of marketing for Revlon, and she was like, at that time, I think she might have been with like L'Oreal or someone. Then I forgot who, but she was like, "Look, if you want to kind of like progress in this world professionally, you this can't, like, you gotta like change this." And so again, because I'm not like a gradual type of person, I'm very extreme. I went home and literally, like, rather than getting a haircut, I got shaved it off.
Wow.
Shaved it off bald, and then I came back that day and I said, "Look, I'm ready to work for you. As you can tell, I'm ready to make any changes that I have to. However, I need your help in terms of the dress department. I don't know what to do."
So you knew to ask for help. That's.
Excuse me?
You asked him for help.
Yeah, and he was like, "Look, there's a sample sale in Hugo Boss. I'm gonna take you. We're gonna get you a suit. We're gonna get you some shoes." So I went and got a suit at Hugo Boss. I ended up getting a pair of like Ferragamo shoes, and
not a bad choice.
And then again, through this Sartorialist website, I have like an obsession in terms, when I get locked into something, I get obsessed with it. And then this whole kind of like this art of like dressing and how guys were like, so elegant and they looked so like confident. I was like, man, I love this. And, I was literally like, I couldn't get off of the Sartorialist website.
Because that was one of the only ones at that time.
I think that was the only thing. This is actually pre-you.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think you were either in college or just came out of college.
Well, I started blogging in 2009, and I was a senior in high school. So Scott was early, man. He was way ahead of his time.
He absolutely, and I always say he's like the OG of like street style.
Well, he took that from Bill Cunningham, though.
Sure.
But as far as internet goes,
Bill Cunningham was taking everyone. I feel like Bill, and I was actually I caught on to him as well, but I wasn't able to understand this industry as like
it wasn't
Scott
curated. Yeah.
So so I ended up doing real estate kind of shortly for like a year. Here.
Wait, so was that a real estate job with the guy?
Yeah, so that was, I ended up, the name of the company was Manhattan Apartments, which
classic.
It doesn't exist anymore. Literally, it's one of those kind of like quintessential old school like New York apartment firms
Okay.
that like they've rented everyone and their mother an apartment at one time. Like
Right.
they were that like old, and I worked with them for a year, and then at the same time, like as I'm like, you got to understand, you got this Brooklyn kid who now is in a new world and working in this new environment, but at the same time, I'd always go home to the old environment, and
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of started falling into like the old ways, and thankfully I was getting much mature, way more mature in terms of like I was growing and with the right people, and even though it was a decision that hurt, that might have hurt the environment I was in, the new environment I was in, I knew that I was like, look, at that time, I'm like, I got to get out of New York.
Ah.
And I ended up, my Faith, which is obviously, my wife, but for those who don't know, Faith's family had relocated to Charleston, South Carolina. And her uncle was like, look, this could be a great opportunity for you to just come lay low. I'll get you. He was an executive at Verizon Wireless. And he's like, I'll get you a job with Verizon Wireless. And so I moved down to Charleston in 2004, and I was working as a customer financial services rep at Verizon Wireless, making a whopping $24,000 a year. And yeah, I mean, I did that for actually that's where my business partner Steven and I reconnected because we went to college together. We played ball together in college.
Yep.
And we reconnected in Charleston in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
So that I lived there for a year, bounced to Atlanta for 4 years, then bounced to Miami for 4 years. Sorry, Charleston was 2 years. And here's the thing is, a lot of people don't know this, but New York started this kind of like love for sartorialism on the kind of like Scott Schumann meets me working with a bunch of like Wall Street type guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then the beauty of, I think that will help me progress to where I'm at now was me moving to all these different states. Cause like, Charleston showed me like this Southern dandyism. And then Atlanta was like, when I moved to Atlanta's like, not many people are getting dressed anymore. There's like a young crowd now that gets it and they do very well. Like my boy Jay Gatz and his crew.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was there in Atlanta in 2006, it was like the home of like the dandies and like the Farnsworth Bentleys and all that stuff. And so this is actually a funny story. This is actually when Ralph Lauren, the store in Atlanta, they didn't have a uniform, so they allowed their employees to dress in anything that they were inspired by that day, as long as it was one of the worlds of Ralph Lauren, which I thought was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a buddy of mine who was a musician, jazz musician, worked at Ralph for like 20 years, or 20 years in general. He used to come in like equestrian one day, and then the next day he would come in like purple label. It was like, his name was Jimmy Brown. It was awesome. And so those two kind of helped mold me to get deeper. One, for me to not be afraid of being bold.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Miami, and Miami obviously, I mean, it kind of presented the colors to me.
Mm-hmm.
And which I don't wear much often. I don't wear, I don't do colors. These days, I'm like, you would rarely catch me in like a pink jacket or like, but
when I met you though, that was your shit though.
Yeah,
you were
absolutely.
Miami lifestyle,
Yeah.
smoking cigars, wearing teal.
So I still, and here's the thing is now as we grow, I'm trying to like reintroduce those things more as a lifestyle, because I still want to inspire those people in Miami. I want to inspire, like, now that we do so much business in Puerto Rico, I want people to know, hey, just because I live in New York now and not in Miami, I want to, when I'm in Puerto Rico, I want to show you how I'm in, like how I dress in Puerto Rico or Miami, and so and all these different environments, so that you can, dress for the lifestyle as opposed to just like, I'm a New York guy, so I'm wearing dark all the time now.
Well, that kind of, this is one of the things I want to talk to you about. It leads me to one of my questions is that, I mean, the problem there is like you're kind of like the face of the brand, right? It's like your style that people want, but you're a custom brand too, right? So like
we all like to say internally that we are a brand that's structured as a ready-to-wear brand, in terms of like the world we've created, the house style, However, we operate as a made-to-measure brand. Yes.
Right. So that's kind of what I struggle with that too, right? It's like at what level do you allow customization versus selling your designs? I guess. I mean, I'm skipping ahead in the story here, I guess, but that's always been something I've been fascinated about because you're really good at branding, right?
Sure.
Like your look is very succinct and it's your thing, but then you have customers that they want to create their own thing, or do they want to be Angel, right? And how do you navigate that?
So, couple of things. I'm just gonna turn off this alarm because it's gonna keep ringing. Give me a second. Sorry.
Sure.
I'm sure you can edit this out. Sorry.
No edits, man. I ain't got time for that.
Are you serious?
No, no, I'm kidding.
All right,
But
we're
ideally,
good
I don't
now.
have to edit anything.
But the what? So if we rewind back, and I am actually flattered that people think that I am quite okay or fairly good at branding. When
I
I was
think you're better than okay.
sure, but and I'm flattered. But when I left Verizon, I was only in Verizon for a year. When I moved to Atlanta, that's where I got back into luxury real estate, and so I was working for Sotheby's. And I can tell you right now, and it'll probably be argued, no one in real estate does branding better than Sotheby's.
Hmm.
Anyone can argue that, and I'll go toe to toe with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
However, Sotheby's is the king of like real estate luxury marketing. And when I learned branding there, and I kind of we started Angel Bespoke, I knew that, and this is after having left Astor and Black. Astor and Black, although I'm very thankful for my time there, I'm David Chauncey is like my brother, like the guy, I love him. I learned a lot there, but it was a company like a lot of these other like kind of like custom clothing companies that isn't it's they're what they're doing is they're selling a service. They're not selling you an image. They're not selling you a world.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was in Astor and Black, I had a lot of clients who were like, hey, I want to work with you because I see you on Instagram and they you have cool style, but here's what I want to create, or I want you to copy this Tom Ford suit. I want you to copy this. And it was cool when I was there. And then when I started Angel Bespoke, I remember, understanding just from looking at, years ago, I applied for a job at Sid Mashman while I was in Atlanta. I was trying my best to get out of real estate to get into this world, and I couldn't. And I applied for a job at Sid. And even though, I say this in a positive way, even though Sid didn't hire me.
Excellent use of the pocket square.
Oh yeah. Even though Sid didn't hire me, he did say his reasoning was he said something that stood out to me, but it's what really like kind of shaped who we are today. Is he said, "Hey, you're a great guy, you're just not a good fit." And at first I was like, "What does that mean? What do you mean I'm not a good fit?" Like, and then I realized I'm like, when you know your brand so well and you know exactly who you are, you also know exactly who you're not.
Right.
And he just knew. He was like, your size, me being a muscular guy, that's not the Sid Mashburn look.
Huh.
And so again, rather than being offended or insulted, I was like, man, that's brilliant. That's a brand. And then when I started Angel Bespoke, I essentially had to start from scratch because every client that I had from Astor and Black, I essentially told them, I won't let you create anything. I won't copy anything. I won't do anything. And a lot of clients were like, okay, I mean, I'm not interested in that.
You're okay with losing those guys.
Yeah, and I knew that I would have to start from scratch, and I started from scratch with the ideology of like what Savile Row is, and it's the house style. It's you go to Huntsman, and Huntsman has a house style that differs from Anderson and Shepherd, and it differs from like Chittoboro, and so we, my house style wasn't as I was still kind of cultivating it then, and as we went, because as you can tell from when I started in 2012 to now, my style has evolved to a much more a more pointed point of view, a more interesting and not interesting, but like a convicted point of view.
Just more
like,
locked in, yeah.
Yeah, and so then it was more of like, oh, I'm stylish. I wear like trimmer pants and this type of jacket. Whereas now, like, we know exactly who we are. We know the world we want to live in. We know what we're inspired by, which is this kind of like 1920s, 30s era, and the fit, the drape, everything, so that when people come to us, yeah, we do have a house style in terms of our lapel gorge and width and shoulders and like everything. So that way, we're not trying to tell you guys you don't have to dress exactly like me, but everything we make you will be in the with the heart of our house style. So for those who come to us and say, "Hey, I love your double breasted, and I love that shape, but can you make me this shape?" I always answer with, "That's not our shape." And so and here's the thing: is it rarely happens now, and I'm very thankful for that, because that just means that we're now creating a brand that people are buying into this world, and they're attached to this world, and they understand it. However, there have been times in the last several years that we've had to essentially, mutually agreed, this is not for you, this is not for us.
Right. So I guess I got lots of questions on that. One, like, where do you draw the line? Right. It's like, is the design, you can't change the design at all, and how does it apply to the fit? Like, do I have to wear a 1920s inspired trouser?
No, so what I did was when we started creating this house style, I did it along with our chief revenue officer, who's our managing director, and he has 25 years in the business, and he was just the director of menswear for Loro Piana, and we worked very hard on this in going, okay, we're gonna grow a brand, we're gonna grow we've created a world. However, we have to have the pure version of the world, and then let's tone it down a little bit for those who want a little bit of it, but they're not ready to kind of get there yet. So what we've created was we have like a pure version of every kind of like style, and then we have I guess essentially the more commercial version. So take our notch lapel. So the pure version of our notch lapel is one. It's called the Angel, and it's a very wide notch lapel. It's 4.5 inches.
Four and a half.
So it's a very broad, very kind of 1920s inspired, with and just kind of like cut. However, if someone says, one is also is us understanding proportions of people's bodies and saying, look, this lapel is too.
If you're a $110 soaking wet, you're going to be
exactly. You shouldn't be wearing this, and this is why we then have what we call the Mateo, and the Mateo is about 3.5 inches of a notch lapel, and you'd be shocked that this person, even though he's not wearing our pure version, the version that is actually appropriate for his frame, he still ends up looking within our world, because
that's still wide.
Right. It's still. I mean,
compared to the average is probably 3.25.
Right. So it's a little wider than the average, but yet it still falls within our. And so the same thing happens with trousers. Is you can come to us, and we have our pure version of the trousers called the Andres, which is the high waisted, and we can come either single or double pleated. But at the same time, someone might say, "Hey, I'm not into like that trouser," so we have the art trouser, and the art trouser is the flat front, and it's again, we're not a ready to wear brand, so rises are all based off proper fit.
Right.
So it's not like we have like our drop this or our rise is this. It's we're fitting you, because even though we operate in a made to measure world in terms of like you are buying into our preset styles that I've created, but we are measuring you and cutting this pattern individually for you, and like as if we're making you something, like as if you're creating something from scratch.
Does that mean I can pick like the leg hole width I want?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, here's the beauty of this is everyone, when they come to us and I'm fitting them, and they see me, and obviously I'm dressing in what we would call the purist form. A lot of people are like, oh man, like I don't know if I can do trousers that high and all this stuff. And then it takes 2 or 3 fittings or 2 or 3 like purchases. Little by little, they'll start going, hey, you know what? Let's do a single pleat on this one, just to test it out.
Yeah.
The single pleat, like, you know what? Let's go a little higher on the rise. And then they start to realize, like, especially for guys who have a bigger seat and all that stuff, they go, man, this actually looks much more flattering on me, and I feel so much more comfortable.
Right.
And so you end up converting those into your true vision
right.
of aesthetic, without having to force them into it.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, man. I mean, I've been I've kind of been struggling with that. You know, it's like willing to turn. I mean, you're willing to turn guys down that and say, listen, this is a better brand if people buy into my aesthetic, and as you train customers, they buy in even more, and it
Right.
probably makes your life a lot more efficient, a lot easier in a lot of ways too.
Right.
Right?
I mean, most companies are streamlined when you control A to Z. What ends up happening is if you let the client control a portion of the A to Z, then anything can happen. And then who's to blame for it? You.
Right.
And so if you have when you're asking your master tailors, like, hey, I'm going to send you 10 orders this week. And out of the 10 orders I'm going to send you this week, one's going to be this, one's going to be this, one's going to be this. And they're all different things. There's so much room for error.
Right.
As opposed to when you're saying, I'm sending you 10 orders this week, and out of the 10, 6 are all notched lapels, but they're seeing the same pattern, whether they're thinner or wider. And I can tell you right now, what we've seen is, I would say 70% of our orders are everyone going towards the pure version.
Right.
Because, right. And it makes me feel good, because that means that people are really truly buying into the brand, and they're not buying, because if you have a house style, the common suit purchaser who just needs a suit to go to work, he doesn't need all these bells and whistles that you know, as a creative, you're like, oh, I created this lapel because this inspired me in this era, and yada yada yada. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a lot of guys that have come from some like very, very high end brands that they have bought into our style, and and then when we create the relationship with them, it's all that allows us to kind of keep them.
Yeah, you got to think that most guys want you. You're a pro. You should do the work, right? It's like, it's always a question of like, how many of these guys are just like the enthusiasts, or the guy who's reading, learning, wants all the options, wants to play designer, versus all the other guys who are not probably as vocal,
right.
that just want something that's dope and want you to do it for them, right? Like, and it's good for everybody. It's less decision making for them. It's a lot more streamlined for brands, and that you've been an inspiration for me to lock in more on like, this is the aesthetic of the brand, and this is what we do and what we don't do. Like, you offer all these options. There's a lot of combos I wouldn't make, like on our own website. Like, I wouldn't do this with this, but we're offering it.
Right.
Right. And then it's just something I've been kind of like struggling with.
But there's so many brands that we can look at, guys like you can look at, that aren't necessarily in the clothing world, and then when you can tell when they're zoned into what their expertise are, or whatever they're, for the point of this conversation, what their world is. So you have take Sotheby's. Sotheby's is a luxury, is the number one international luxury real estate firm in the world. However, if you go to them, I'm either looking to buy or list a luxury home. Mm-hmm. If you go to them and say, hey, I got a $300,000 house in the sticks of Pennsylvania, they're going to go, yeah, we don't list those. And it's not because like we're too good. It's just, that's not what we do.
Right.
What we offer is, we offer what we offer in terms of marketing for this.
Yeah. And in our discussions, like in our team meetings, I've been using this analogy of restaurants. Like, the higher end the restaurant, the more vision the chef has, and the smaller the menu is.
Right.
Like, in some high-end restaurants, you don't even get a choice. And it's like, the more luxurious you get, the less choice there is. Then you go to a really cheap restaurant, the menu's got pages and pages, and
Cheesecake Factory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And here's the thing: is like, I'm excited for us and guys like you and I to get to the point where people buy in so much that even our fabric choices are so dialed in to where it is like a 5-star restaurant. Like, if you go to Daniel, you're not looking at a 16-page menu.
Right.
And so I want people to come in and say, hey, here's our fall curated collection for fall winter. And and it could be literally a collection of just overall 30. And these are the main things we're wearing, but we are in an industry where options are it's funny how they scare the client, but at the same time, it's scary for them not to have them options. So if they can come into and you overwhelm a guy with 15, 20 books on the table that all have the average of 45 fabrics each. However, if you sit them down and you say, here's this folder for suiting for our fall winter collection, here's this folder for jacketing, he's gonna be like, that's it.
So what if you had finished garments? Would that help?
Finished garments help. Finished garments help because it is the true like kind of like world in a tangible piece.
And 20 jackets on a rack can seem like a lot. 20 fabrics on a table seem like nothing, right?
Right. And so we're working more and more on getting to the point where, because look, we do have a lot of clients that say, what's Angel wearing? What's Angel wearing this fall winter? And we have our sales guy in Atlanta. He's going, oh, well, this is the flannels he's wearing from Fox. Here are these tweeds. Here's this, and so they go, great. I mean, because if they're really truly, when you go into Tom Ford, I mean, the true version of Tom Ford, 6-7 years ago, was you were going in there, you were only looking at a collection of what they said was like, what Tom was like, this is what I want, this is what I'm approving, and you were just like, what else do I have to choose from?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, little by little, we're all trying to get to that point. I would hope that creatives like you are trying to get to that point, so that way, again, this streamlined process of how to do business. It might sound like we're stripping the creativity, but we're not. We're actually, it is creative, but what it does is it allows us to offer the client what he really wants, and it's that like most incredible customer service where we can streamline everything. Things are coming on time. Things are, there's no errors, and they're buying within our world.
That's excellent, man. So, talk to me about this rebrand. So it sounds like everyone, it's still about you, right? Like you're far and away the face of the brand. People want to know what Angel's wearing. So why take your name out of the brand?
So we wanted to scale, and we wanted to grow this company, and we wanted to bring on people and grow the family with salespeople, with obviously internal staff, to where, yes, we understand that the founder of this was Angel, and that the figurehead is still Angel. However, we wanted to create a world that wasn't all based on Angel. It is inspired by Angel, but not really, because it's inspired by what inspired Angel, which is this era of the 20s and 30s. And as we grow a brand, we wanted to kind of I wanted to speak to people more with aesthetics and more of a world rather than with myself. And so we wanted to get rid of the bespoke in the name. That was a given.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
We wanted to get rid of the bespoke. One is because we don't do bespoke, and it's funny because I named it, and you don't know this, but you're gonna have to know this now. It's your fault that it was Angel Bespoke.
My fault?
It is your fault because when I left Astro Black right before I met with you to do our first video, not video but our first photo shoot, I was talking to you and I was like, hey, so I'm gonna start my own kind of brand, and here are all the ideas of names that I have, and you're like, wait, but your Instagram handle, your Twitter handle is Angel Bespoke, and you've had that for like 2-3 years, and that's what you're known for. I go, yeah, but I only did that as a joke. I mean, I'm not I'm not gonna do bespoke. And you're like, are you crazy? You built your brand on that. You gotta use that.
I mean, I
used it.
I still feel that way.
No, I'm very thankful that I did, and it was great because I was able to create a brand with Angel Bespoke that was more of a name, as if Bespoke was my last name, as opposed to the name of the brand was Angel, and we did Bespoke. And so
yeah, but I go back and forth on the bespoke thing. It's like people are abusing that word all over the place. Like, was there a lot of people actually giving you flack for using the word bespoke, or was that more like internal?
I'm pretty sure people under their breath or behind closed doors said whatever they said. No, no one said it to me specifically, either to my face or thankfully, people respected me or as a person to like not like say, oh, you're not real, but look, I'm pretty sure it was out there.
Mm-hmm.
However, we kept it going and we built the brand on that. And when it was time to transition out, I wanted to take myself and the name Bespoke out. So the first thing was like I wanted to take Bespoke out, and then after we took Bespoke out, Steven, my business partner, and a lot of like the people who were on the team and consulting with us were like, hey, let's keep Angel. And my main thing was like, well, then it goes beyond it goes against what I really want to do, which is create a brand that, yes, I will be a part of this, but create a brand that it isn't attached to my name.
But
I
see,
think
that's what I actually wanted to talk to you about. This is like the personal brand versus the traditional brand, I suppose. And to me, you had like a really strong personal brand. It was Angel Bespoke. There was like a religious angle, right? There was a lot of
no,
God. Well,
I mean, it was just my faith, but there was never a religious angle to the company.
Right. There was a faith element though, right? There was mentions of God in the Instagram. There was the My Life is Art. There's a family angle.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was really strong. And I always wonder myself about like how much of AOS is me versus the AOS bigger than me brand. Even on our Instagram, how much of my family should I be showing versus clothing, style advice, etc. So your view on this one is move away from personal brand, and why is because that's just going to grow bigger beyond you?
Yeah, look, I want to. We, as of right now, I've decided that, and I also needed a break, but I decided once we transitioned that I wouldn't. I can again create my own Instagram page. Essentially, I didn't want to compete with myself, but on a bigger scale because everyone was attached to me, which I'm very thankful for. And as I'm trying to now grow something that is bigger than me, I didn't want to compete with that. And so I wanted to keep people, hey, thank you for supporting me for all these years. Please support us in this because it's an us thing now as opposed to a me thing, and I wanted to get beyond the me and create an us. And us is not only my team and my salespeople and my business partner, but it's also our customers, our clients, those who support us, those who follow us, whether you've bought anything or you have not. I wanted to build a bigger us.
So tell me about that. You changed the name. How does the business model change to go along with that and kind of the future growth strategy?
So the business model was almost the same in all parts. The only thing is that in the past we were logistically and financially we were not ready to further this brand where we wanted to go and where we're going now. And that was to scale it to a point where we do have an army or a team essentially as our ambassadors around the country. And
so is that like people doing like kind of like a Tom James model?
It's like our version of Tom James. It's our version of Astro and Black. There is right now currently there is no custom clothing company that has salespeople, whether it's nationally or globally, because our vision is global, that has salespeople globally or nationally that have a figurehead, that have an actual point of view or a world and an aesthetic. Mm-hmm. They're just selling a
That's
service.
Where those guys really don't have anything. I mean, you look at a Tom James website it's laughable. The sales are incredible.
Right, but and that's the thing is like their numbers they're crushing this and their numbers are very very high and their numbers they have all these salespeople but they have no soul, they have no image, they have no aesthetic, they have no point of view, they have no world. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to take the good of that and then the good of the essentially the fashion world of like the Tom Fords and the Tom Browns and the Ralph Laurens and mix those together because no one's done that yet. And no one's been able, I don't even know if anyone's tried. Well, no one's been able to succeed in it, but when I saw the biggest void is this side of the world with that side of the world, and that's what the vision was. And I knew that with that vision in mind, and this is a vision that I've always been taught with a lot of my mentors is dream and be a vision caster, to where the vision is so like insulting that people are either like it's laughable of how big it is.
Mm-hmm.
And when I knew how big this can be, because it's not been done yet, I knew that Angel Bespoke was just not the name for it.
So are you at all, first of all, how do you find, you need great people, right? How do you find those great people? And are you at all concerned that the best ones become you? And kind of what you did at Aster and Black, right? It's like, why do I need Aster and Black? I'm the best guy you got.
So, couple of things. That's actually a brilliant question. One is, how do we find? So the first one is, how do we find these people? Right now, what we've been doing is we've been hiring, and we've been putting out kind of like job postings out on Instagram and LinkedIn, and thankfully we've been getting a lot of people. Sure. Right now, we currently have 15 people that. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of a delay and a setback due to our current state of the world. But I have about 15 new salespeople coming on board, and literally representing 10 different cities. Wow. We have LA, Houston, Las Vegas, Nashville, Atlanta, Washington D.C., New York, Chicago, and I think there's another city. I can't remember now, but there's another city, or a couple other cities. And here's the thing is, like, how do you... So we've been building that, and the goal is to have 40 to 50 salespeople by the end of the year, all ramped up.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is a training program with you, I assume.
The training program is going to be with myself, our operations director, Miles, and also our managing director, his name is Suda, who came from Loro Piana. Yeah. So I brought on these two heavyweight guys to support me, just as much as like when I brought on my business partner, who was my college friend. I knew that, one, we had synergy, and two is, I'm like, you believe in me and you believe in this vision. I just need you to fund it, Right. And so
put your money up.
Yeah, exactly. Write a check.
You believe in this, right?
Right, exactly. So, when you're creating a brand that has a specific world and one has a figurehead, yes, do you risk hiring someone like myself? And the reason I was created, this monster of Angel was created at Aster and Black, is because there was no world, there was no brand. Aster and Black was a brilliant company ran by one of my great friends, David Shanti, which I love. Mm-hmm. And I owe a lot to him. Mm-hmm. But Aster and Black was started by him, and his vision the whole time was, his vision was great, and he knew it. He says, I want to provide custom clothing at a lower price, as opposed to people having to go to Savile Row and all these expensive tailors, mm-hmm. and I'm going to make it custom for them. His vision was never tied to a specific aesthetic or a time frame, or mm-hmm. there was Aster and Black weren't two different people,
Right. So essentially you're saying, like, what you're able to do, and I think this is true, what you're able to do is harder than coming up with a business model to hire people. Creating a brand is the hard. Like, that's why I say to people who say, aren't you worried someone's going to knock you off? I say, not at all, because it's the brand that's the hard part to create.
Right.
Right? Like, how do you get someone to...
Look, this business is like real estate. Anyone can get into clothing, or the custom clothing business. Literally, it takes 2 days, if that.
All right, easiest business to get into.
It's the easiest business. The only thing that makes real estate tougher is the fact that you have to take a test.
Right.
Like, it is easy. And so when I was there, the only way I knew as a branding guy from Sotheby's was like, I need people to follow me and want to work with me so that they can buy from me. But guess what? I was still selling them everything. Mm-hmm. Now I'm overseeing creatively this brand, and I have all these salespeople selling what we've created. It's not salespeople selling what they've created. Right. It's salespeople, and our best salespeople will have like the most incredible relationships with the right type of client, just like they do at Tom Ford, just like they do at Ralph Lauren. But at the same time, when you go to Tom Ford, you're buying Tom Ford.
Mm-hmm.
You could be buying Tom Ford from the #1 salesperson at Tom Ford globally,
Mm-hmm.
but they're buying Tom Ford. It just so happens you have the right personality, the right person who loves working with people, working with them. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who love working with people and have experience. However, they are selling our aesthetic. So when we hire people that are coming out of like Tom James, it is a tough transition for them because they're so used to working with clients who are like, hey, I want you to design this one garment like Alice in Wonderland,
right.
This other garment, copy Tom Ford, this other garment, try to copy this. And we don't do that. And
right.
so if they're coming to us and we can't offer those customizations, a lot of them are, we have some people who go, great, I like this, is a little bit more zoned in, I'm in. And other people are saying, this is just not for me.
Yeah. And you're fine with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also it makes it easier to train people when it's more streamlined too. Easier
exactly.
to scale, right?
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
It actually makes it easier to hire people that are not in menswear, but know how to deal well with people, because now you're just training them how to sell what you have, how you sell, and that's it.
Yeah, your training manual is much thinner.
You're not training them how to, like, when someone comes from not Tom Ford, but from Tom James, you're saying, I have to retrain your mind on like clothing, because one is, let's be honest, I would say 98% of Tom James, the people who work there, don't have the greatest sense of style. Right? Now, and that could be aggressive, and I might get a lot of, people might get a little, mad about that. But you got to untrain.
I'll co-sign that.
Yeah, you got to untrain garbage to train beauty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Very interesting, my man. So tell me about your style. Tell me about what are you wearing this spring when we get out of the house?
Certainly not this. This spring. So when I actually find myself being much more into. These days I'm more simplistic, and I'm making myself 2 or 3 key pieces and wearing them with a lot.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So, this offspring, this spring, summer, you'll see me wearing. I always kind of gravitate towards like grays and charcoal grays.
Yeah.
And then I always like one kind of statement like blazer, like jacket piece.
Yeah. To
wear with a lot of things, and I always like chocolate brown tobaccos and like black linens. Linen. Wearing that with a lot, I'm trying to, it's funny. It's funny because a lot of people hate when I say this. In the beginning of Angel Bespoke, I was such a great advocate of like black socks and black is for wedding and funerals, and the guy who is an icon to me in style says that, and now, now I'm finding such elegance and beauty and the simplicity of black,
mm-hmm.
that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make black cool. I'm gonna wear a lot of black now, and so
black's been cool, man.
It has been cool, but it hasn't been cool in the sartorial world. Because the sartorial world's kind of trained on this, like, don't wear black, wear a lot of color, and wear brown, and wear this and wear that, and I'm kind of like, man, there's so much beauty and like elegance, and there's so much black that was worn in the 20s and 30s that I want to bring back in a way where. What I want to do this spring, summer is teach people how to dress proper again for the summer, where it isn't only like a suit with a linen shirt and a linen tie, or a knit tie, but it's more of like maybe you kind of throw away the ties for a couple of weeks in the summer, and you're wearing more like silk knit polos, with the collar out, and like some linen jackets and some so that there's a lot of like pairings that. I'm getting inspired by movies like, The Cafe Society, and obviously Godfather Part 2, which has a lot of scenes from like kind of Havana, Cuba, and that type of like era, and how the mafia guys and the gangsters used to dress in like Havana, Cuba, and all that stuff.
So talk to me a little bit more about that, like the casual. You mentioned like knit polos and stuff. Like, are you going to be introducing more casual wear, and is that going to be ready to wear or custom?
I wouldn't say casual. Like, so right now we eventually want to get to the point where we start to kind of like, right now we're working on shoes. That's our next kind of
Oh,
like thing. We're working on shoes, and even that's going to be very zoned in, where we're only going to come out with two styles right now. One's going to be a tassel loafer and then and an Oxford lace up,
yeah.
only offered in two colors, black and chocolate brown.
Two colors
And
each.
so two two I mean, they're going to be made to order, so that they won't be like ready. They won't be like kind of made and
Yeah.
like ready to wear. But so we're going to offer them in two, whether suede and leather, black and brown. Very simple. We're not we're trying to essentially create the look as opposed to being in the shoe business.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? We just want to make shoes that are very, very well made. And
mm.
we have some very good friends of ours that are making our shoes in Italy, and they're going to be beautifully made. And then we want to get to the point where we do start introducing knitwear and denim, and there will be, essentially with those items, we definitely do want to make it an e-commerce play where
Mm-hmm.
they're just online and it's not something you're getting custom from us.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about the e-commerce and the future of that for you.
So the e-commerce right now, we've started it with small kind of capsules. So last year I did a fall capsule that was kind of like the entrance after one in the entrance into like e-commerce, but also how we got into this world after kind of launching the brand. And then we went into doing a holiday capsule, which is funny because this is something I've always wanted to do, this holiday capsule, because I was always essentially like complaining that like, man, I wish more guys purchase and like were interested in getting like more holiday attire. And it actually helped. So we ended up creating a what we called our holiday blazer, which was a very bold tartan blazer with like
Yeah.
gold blazer buttons. We did a velvet navy blue smoking blazer. We did a
Mm-hmm.
tuxedo, and then those items like sold out very, very quickly. And
Wow.
it also helped having that on the rack, and going on trunk shows with that those garments helped us get the interest in guys going, you know what, I want to wear a cool jacket for my holiday party.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so much holiday stuff. I mean, look, this
I
is
mean, you're wearing it
what
right now.
right, what most people would call a holiday blazer. I mean, I actually wear it. I don't wear it obviously year round, but I don't see it as a like, oh, you only wear this in December during for holiday parties.
Right.
Like this is I'm in love with like tartan, plaid, and like bold patterns. So I just wear it kind of like three seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're hearing a lot of people like streetwear's boomed, right? Streetwear's become a huge thing. A lot of people now saying streetwear is coming to an end. I just did a live thing and someone asked, people are talking about a post sneaker world. Virgil
Okay.
Abloh saying streetwear is over. Are you seeing a bigger interest in kind of sartorial dress, or do you see that kind of coming back more? Or what do you think is the future of
I
the
think
trend
there's
of
going to
people
be
dressing?
definitely a return of this type of attire. I think that the I think people just want to feel better again in this type of environment. I think that sneaker world and the kind of streetwear world had a good run, and as you and I both know, made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of designers are they want to get dressed again,
Hmm.
and for brands like yours and mine, I think it's the perfect time because I think internally at 18th Amendment we say we are now at the return of the gentleman. Guys want women want guys who are dressing like gentlemen again, and they're not just wearing a bunch of high end like streetwear. And so we see a big resurge and like people coming back to us with. I mean, I here's when you can tell that this is kind of like taking off again. This kind of like world when your trouser sales start to go up. You know, you and I both know selling trousers is, and when you're not a trouser maker, isn't the easiest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when guys are coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want to buy more trousers," and I'm like, "Man, we're selling a lot of trousers." It's because that's like the entrance.
Hmm.
You would think it'd be a blazer to wear with jeans, but a lot of guys, they're getting more trousers, and then they're starting to get shirts, and then they kind of start putting the looks together. And
Hmm.
so I think that if we guys like you and I can continue to convey this world in a way where if we are going to the Nat King Cole bar and having a cocktail, dress in a specific attire where we look like so comfortable and so graceful and like this is what we do and it's Wednesday and this is how I'm dressing. Guys are looking at that not going, it's after 6 o'clock and I'm like my tie's like halfway down because like, oh, this is my uniform. Like this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're getting back to. This it's the comfort of looking like this.
Mm. So I'm a guy. I'll leave you with this. I'm a guy. Been wearing streetwear. Don't want to wear streetwear anymore. I want to get into this world. What's your advice or your first few pieces you need to start being more sartorial?
I think, and let's be realistic, because you can't dive in, to 8 feet. You got to start at 3 feet and start kind of, breaststroking your way in, I think that getting a nice pair of tailored jeans. I'm still an advocate of like the great pair of jeans.
Where are you getting those from?
Excuse me.
Where are you getting the jeans from?
Personally, look, my personal favorite pair of jeans are double RL, and I say that because I'm a bigger guy, so I need a pair of jeans that aren't like these skinny mini like low rise jeans. So double RL has a more generous rise and cut for guys like me, and then you can have them cut however you want. But I think you have an elegant pair of jeans with beautiful pair of loafers, whether it is a dress shirt, a polo shirt, or even a t-shirt, and it's starting with the right blazer. So it's the blazer, it's the jeans.
What's that right blazer?
My right blazer that I always start with is either two. It's either a navy hopsack or a black hopsack with gold buttons. You can wear that with everything. T-shirt, dress shirt, denim shirt. I mean, it looks cool with everything. And it's turtleneck. It doesn't really matter. And then you pairing that with a beautiful pair of like denim jeans, and then like you can do slippers, you can do some loafers, kind of to put that all look together. So it's almost like start like smart casual, and then start working your way in, as opposed to like diving into like a 3-piece suit.
If my blazer is black, should those loafers be black? Or should the loafers always be brown, navy, if the jacket's navy or black?
I would go with black. Because black goes with both.
Go with black loafers first.
Yeah. Black loafers go with the blue blazer and the black blazer. So my thing is always going to be like, let's start with one, but you're eventually going to have to get the other one as well. Because you want that option as well.
You never disappoint, dude.
I try not to, not try to disappoint, but try not to.
So people want to reach out to Angel. How do they hit you?
If they want to, reach out to us to schedule an appointment, they can easily do info at 18thamendment.com. 18th Amendment is actually spelled out, so it's info at 18th Amendment, or hit us up on Instagram, send us a DM, and we'd love to chat. We'd love to talk when this madness of this world is all said and done. We'd love to have people over for a drink, a cocktail at our showroom, and just say hey. A lot of times we want people to know it's like we want to create the relationship first. It's not all about like hey we need to make the sale. So
yeah, what do you think is going to happen with this situation? You think how is it going to affect the biz?
Man, if I can answer that, then I should have a direct line to the Senate and I can't. I don't know. I don't have an answer. The only answer I can say is I hope it all. I'm positive that it'll eventually subside and diminish. When I don't. I wish I did know. I don't. But I can say is stay positive during this time. Stay healthy during this time. As opposed to what most people will tell everyone. drink less, because it's easy to drink more during these times at home.
Mm-hmm.
Drink less, exercise more, and stay inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Use this time to understand and honor the idea of when you are on a regular basis, when you're working all day long, of how amazing it feels to just be at home with your family and your significant others, and have that time, and stay inspired. Watch specific movies. Read specific books. Go to specific pages to kind of keep your mind stimulated, so that when you come out of this thing, you're stronger, you're better, and you can be even more creative to do something greater or better or different.
Very well said, man. Very well said.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time, man.
Thanks, man. Always great.
Stay safe. Let's link when we can.
Yeah, we'll do. We can continue this if this is the only,
Hey, if we're still at home in 3 weeks, we'll do it all over again.
Yeah, there you go. All right, brother.
See you, Angel. Thanks again.
Thank you.